Hello and welcome to Ask Ron with your host, me Ron. Before I get to any questions, I need to clear a little something up. The other day on RX, they had a little round table. They have a lot of round tables, of course, that's their thing. So various people were ripping on me, whatever. Lee Priest, who, I don't know why Lee was going on and on about me. What did I ever do to you, Lee? Have I ever said anything bad about you? Have I ever done anything to you? I wrote your column and thought we had a good working relationship when you were with MD. But I don't know, Lee. I don't know if Lee doesn't like me for real or if he was just being outrageous and, saying all those things because he knows that's what Dave really wants him to do is be outrageous, be controversial, talk shit. So Lee was saying stuff like, poor Ron probably has to go in and oil up and put baby powder on and stand there for Steve Bleckman. And then someone else, maybe it was Lee, someone else made a reference to poor Ron has to go into work every morning. And so these comments make it seem as if I work at the MD offices. And the truth of the matter is, I have never so much as seen the MD offices in Long Island, New York. Never been there, all these years. I'm fortunate that I work at home, thank God, because I hate commuting. The last time I worked in an office environment was 1998. When I was still living in California. I worked as a trainer for about a year and a half at a gym, training clients, and in the interim. And since 2000, I have never worked anywhere except my own home, and I'm very grateful for that. It's pretty great to stay in your own house. And there's my kitchen, there's my bathroom, there's my bedroom, and I got my wonderful studio here. It's not. It's my home office. It's pretty messy, I admit. So, yeah, I've never even been to the MD offices. I certainly don't go there every day. I live in South Shore, Boston. I'm a good 4-hour drive away from Long Island. Certainly wouldn't be making that commute every day. Anyway, enough of that. Let's get to some questions. Glenn Hill from the UK asked some great questions last time. And the last one that he had for me was sort of involved where I didn't want to brush past it. I wanted to give it a really solid detailed response. So Glenn's question was, when you train, do you always use good form and full range of motion? Do you use supersets, drop sets, etc.? And how do you utilize them? Do you train to failure? And if so, just on the last set of each exercise? Great question. Good form and full range of motion. When I was younger, especially in my late teens, early 20s, I was sort of brainwashed by these books and writings of Arthur Jones and Ellington Darden, PhD, Dr. Ellington Darden. They wrote these Nautilus books, a lot of really inspirational, great training books, cool pictures, selling you on the Nautilus equipment for one, and their briefer, high-intensity style training for two. And they did not believe in ever loosening up your form. It was always about very strict form all the time. You had to use that in a full range of motion. So I was convinced that was the absolute superior way to train. Anyone that was doing partial reps or loosening up their form, they were missing out. They were gonna not get the gains that they could. And I distinctly remember the late Don Ross, who was actually the editor of MD for a while. And Don was a friend of mine. He was a mentor. He inspired me in a lot of ways. He was one of the people that really made me want to be a writer for the magazines. Great guy. He was hilarious. He had a million stories. He had been a pro wrestler. He had been a pro bodybuilder. Just a cool guy. Just a character. Don was great. Anybody that knows Don the Ripper Ross, great memories of this man. But one day I happened to be at World Gym in Venice, and I saw Don over at the hammer strength machine outside. They had a cool workout area out. This gym's long gone. They had a cool outdoor deck with tons of hammer strength machines, the cable set up, dumbbells, benches. I don't think there was any barbells out there. But anyway, he was on this hammer strength behind neck, and he was just doing these partial reps. And I came over and I said, "What are you doing, Don? You're not doing a full rep here." He's like, "No, I'm doing partial reps. This is fine. This is, I'm overloading that part of the range of motion." I just remember, I was probably like 22 years old at the time. I knew it all, and I knew he was wrong. You know what? I'll get to it later, but that's one of the things that changed for me the most over the years is I learned to have an open mind about things, and that good form has its place and looser form has its place. if you always use good form, eventually I figured out you're limited in the amount of weight you can use, and you really won't be able to sometimes go to that place beyond failure that you want to go. So let's take barbell curls for an example. Let's say you do 8 very strict reps with a 120-pound barbell, and you try to get another one, but you can't. Well, that's failure, right? No, now you can loosen up your form. Now you can start using a little bit of heave and getting the shoulders and the back involved just a little bit to get out another couple reps that you would not have been able to get in strict form. And by doing so, you're engaging these other surrounding muscle groups to help take the target muscle group, in this case the biceps, into that deeper state of exhaustion that would not have been possible if you had persisted in using only strict form. And the same thing goes for range of motion. A lot of times you can't get any more full reps on something, but you can get partial reps. And if you continue getting those partial reps, I mean, here's a good example. Any kind of a lat pull down, okay? Any kind of a lat pull down, you're going to hit a point, whether it's wide grip, close grip, whatever, you're going to hit a point where you can no longer get a full rep. But I guarantee you'll still be able to get partials from the top part way down. Why not keep doing those and keep overloading the lats? Another thing is leg curls. Lying leg curls is a great example. You're going to get to a point on lying leg curls where you can't do any full reps, but you'll still be able to get some partial reps from the bottom. So why not keep going until you can't get any more of those? That's how you really take a muscle past that point where it's used to being taken, and you're going to get some, that's where you shock it into growth, into new gains. So I do believe there's definitely a time and place. You don't want to use cheating form, loosen up the form from the beginning, because if you do that, then you're going to be involving all those surrounding muscle groups from the start, and the target muscle's not going to be getting the stress that it should. So that's the opposite of what you want to do. You don't want to cheat from the very beginning. I don't believe in cheat curls where every rep is a cheat curl. I don't think that's a great idea, because you're involving too many other muscle groups. But like I said, strict curls till you can't do any more strict, then you cheat up a few more. That's how I feel it should be done. I mean, I've had much better success doing it that way. As far as intensity techniques, supersets, drop sets, etc., I do use those. I don't like to use them too often. I believe you're going to burn out on them, you're going to overtrain on them, and you're using them as a shock tactic. So if you use those all the time, your body's going to get acclimated to those, and it's not a shock tactic anymore. You've basically just defeated the whole purpose of using these supersets and drop sets. I do like to use them though. I will typically use more of those toward the end of a workout. So like back day, a heavy T-bar row, or heavy, I can't really do barbell rows anymore, unfortunately. It's like a heavy row, pull downs, machine, row. Then I might get into something like a superset using cables, like cable pullovers with a cable row, something like that, where I'm not worrying so much about the weight at that point. Now I'm just trying to get the most blood into the muscle as possible. Pump, pump, pump. Blood, blood, blood. That's my mantra as I'm trying to finish up a workout. I want to get that muscle just engorged with blood, just ready to burst. Because, and that's more critical as you get older, and you basically you're done getting stronger. You're not going to be getting stronger. And in a lot of cases, due to injuries and overuse on your tendons and connective tissues, you're not going to be able to use the heaviest weights on every exercise that you might have done in your younger years. It's just not, hopefully if you take good care of yourself, you can avoid a lot of this, but I didn't, and most of the people my age, we did a lot of dumb shit when we were younger in the gym. We're living with the pain and the limitations of it now, but it's all good. I'm still training. I still love training. Still have good workouts, so it's all good. The last part of that was, do I train to failure? And if so, is it only on the last set of each exercise? I used to train to failure on all my sets, and then eventually I figured out it's probably best to save the failure for the last couple sets. So if I'm doing 2 work sets, I'll go pretty close to failure on the first 2, and usually on the last 2, I'll take those to failure. Try maybe even beyond failure on one of those. But it's the CNS, your central nervous system, that you really have to be conscious of. You can't just destroy every rep, every set, every workout, and expect to recover from that. Maybe if you're totally loaded up on all kinds of good drugs, and you can sleep 12 hours a day, and you can get, 7 meals a day in or something. You could probably get away with a lot more of these things than the average bear. But for most of us, I would not take every single set to failure, unless you're on a very brief type of workout, high intensity type of routine where you're only doing, a few work sets per body part. That makes sense. But if you're doing 20 sets per body part, 30 sets per body part, even if it's 15, you're doing a lot of sets, you're doing a good amount of volume. Many studies have actually shown that you get the same results by not going all the way to failure. So I do believe in going to failure. I believe you still need to, but not on every set. I would save it for the last set or 2 sets of every exercise. I wouldn't do it all the time. Next question comes from GH Gut. I have a gut, it's not from GH, it's just from regular gear and too much food. Ron, what current day bodybuilders, parentheses, Heath, Kai, Rami, Roden, Cedric, etc., do you think could hold their own on the 1990 stage alongside Prime, Dorian Yates, Flex Wheeler, Sean Ray, Chris Cormier, Nasser, and Kevin Leveroni? You're not going to expect this answer from me, but here it is. They all would. They would all do very well. They would have stepped, if they need to be in better condition, because these guys were in better condition, they would have stepped up their condition. They would have done, I'm sort of doing it backwards, because usually we talk about the guys from the past. If they competed now, what would they have to do well? So now I'm going the other way. But I mean, most of these guys, they bring pretty awesome condition these days anyway. The only exceptions, Cedric, a lot of the times I've seen him, I don't think the condition that I've seen Cedric in a lot of times would have been enough to really hold up against the best guys of the 90s. Rami might have had issues too, because he doesn't have the best separation. But Kai, certainly amazing muscle quality, condition, loads of mass. I believe Kai would have held up very well against Dorian and those guys. Heath too. Heath's a big guy with round, bubbly muscles, and he typically brings really great condition. Occasionally he's off a little bit. He still wins Mr. Olympia. I think these guys would have done pretty well. They're no slouches. All those names, these guys they're the best right now, and I think they would have been pretty good back then too. Mayor bodybuilding, Dan Dillon. Where do you see bodybuilding in 10 years? That's a good one. I don't know. About where it is now, I guess. I believe classic will be more popular than it is now. There's always going to be an audience for open pro bodybuilding. Even if there's talk that they're losing all their fans because of guts and this and that. No, there's always going to be a certain niche of the market, a certain group that always wants to see the freaks, and they're the ones that are going to pay the $1,000 VIP package to go to Mr. Olympia and support the shows and magazines, supplement companies. There's always going to be room for the big guys. There always will. I mean, that's bodybuilding. Just because these other divisions are gaining ground doesn't mean open bodybuilding for men is going to go away. I don't believe it's ever going away. I don't think it's going to be any more popular than it is. I don't think it's going to grow. It's going to be about where it is now. It's going to stay there, I think. And, is what it is. It's enough to keep it going. And we have these other divisions. There's something for everyone now. So the sport as a whole, I think it's going to remain fairly healthy, and it's going to keep chugging on. Funniest bodybuilder. Jose Raymond is hilarious. He's hilarious. He's hilarious normally. You give him a couple drinks and forget about it. It's like a stand-up routine. You'll actually have stomach pains laughing so hard at his jokes, because he's just he's funny, and he's outrageous. He'll say things that you're like, yeah, oh my God, I can't believe he just said that. Because especially if he's had a couple shots, he doesn't give a fuck. And you know what? I'll give Lee Priest, who just ripped me a new one on RX. I'll give him credit. Lee's got a great sense of humor. It's a dark and twisted sense of humor, and he says some things sometimes that'll make you cringe. Very inappropriate sense of humor at times, but he is a funny guy. So, comedy goes different places, and it's different types of comedy. It appeals to different people. But those two guys are pretty hilarious. But Jose gets my nod for the funniest bodybuilder I know. Most insecure bodybuilder. I can't say I've ever known any top-level pros that were insecure. I think most of them that get to that point, if they are insecure, they're not really showing it to the average person. One thing that did strike me years ago was early 90s. we had just had the Pro Ironman out in LA, and I was at Gold's Venice with the camera crew, the video crew, shooting some workout stuff for the American Muscle Show, and we were doing a leg workout with Jim Quinn. Jim Quinn used to be with Twin Lab. He was an ex-NFL player. Huge guy. He was a mass monster. He was about 270 in shape, at 6 foot, 270 or so. Huge dude. So for those of you who don't know, look up Jim Quinn. What a monster he was. Anyway, so he was training legs. He had shorts on, and he had this big, like, ragged sweatshirt covering his whole upper body. And I tried to get him to take it off because even though we're shooting legs, he was in contest shape. He just competed the day before. So I thought it was kind of ridiculous. I was like, at least put a tank top on. People could see the physique. He literally had his whole upper body covered in a big loose sweatshirt. He goes, nope, won't do it. Not when I train legs, because my upper body gets flat and it's going to look small. I'm like, oh, small? Really, dude? You're freaking the size of a house. Your upper body's, I'm sure your flat and small is still enormous. Don't worry about it. He wouldn't take the shirt off. California, I was out there 10 years, and that's where I saw probably the best example of it because it was so freaking hot in the summers out there. I hated it. I was in the San Gabriel Valley. I trained most of that time out at a gym in California, Pasadena. It was a world gym, and then toward the end of the 90s, it became a Gold's gym. But there was a few guys I recall over the years there that I knew that were big guys, big, juiced up, huge, but they stayed covered up all the time, sweats, loose sweatpants, loose sweatshirts. And it wasn't out of modesty. It wasn't because they were humble, modest guys. It was because they didn't feel they looked good enough to show their bodies. One of them competed, so at least he dieted down and showed it off one time. But there were other guys, and it would be like 100 degrees outside, 105 degrees outside. The gym had air conditioning and everything, but I couldn't walk around like that, But they were insecure in their physiques, and they had, body dysmorphia. It's very, very common. We were just talking, me and the Dr. O'Connor were talking on the show about it. A lot of us suffer from that body dysmorphia. We're never going to be... It's fine that you're never fully satisfied because a physique is a work in progress. It's something you're always trying to improve, but a lot of us look in the mirror and we're just like, we always see ourselves as skinny or fat, or skinny and fat at the same time. And I've known guys, like I said, some of these guys I'm talking about were huge, like, let's say like 5'9", 5'10", a solid 260 to 280. Big guys, and they didn't think they were big enough. A lot of them wouldn't compete because they weren't big enough yet. They were never big enough. They were never going to be. They could have been 320, 330. They would never, in their heads, have been big enough to compete. So yeah, I think a lot of us get into bodybuilding out of insecurity. I did. I was a little guy. I was short, thin, lean, but thin, no good at sports. So I came into it, and a lot of guys came into bodybuilding trying to just, bolster your image, self-image, your confidence, building up the body, getting yourself physically larger, stronger. So I think insecurity is very, very common among bodybuilders. Maybe the only ones who aren't like that are the ones who were high-level athletes before they got into bodybuilding. Talk about Jose again. Jose was a great football player. Him and his brother were both just phenomenal athletes before they became great bodybuilders. So they didn't have that insecurity. They didn't come into bodybuilding from a place of, oh, I feel like I need to be bigger or stronger to intimidate the guys that are bullying me or get the attention from the girls. Bullies weren't bothering them. Girls were loving them already, so they weren't insecure. But a huge, huge percentage of the people that come to bodybuilding come to it out of that place of insecurity. So which bodybuilder is the most insecure? Almost all of them. Okay, last question. Actually, these were all from the mayor. I'm sorry. So these were all from the mayor. So last question. Best advice you ever got in regards to bodybuilding? I wish I could remember specific people or mentors, because he also had, it was 2 questions, and they were basically the same question. Who showed you the ropes as a young bodybuilder, and what the best advice you ever got in regards to bodybuilding? There was no one. I never had a mentor. I didn't have any one person that really, would set me aside, took me under his wing, showed me everything. There was nobody like that. But I read everything I could get. This was before the internet, so I would go to bookstores and buy books. I'd go to the library and check out books. I'd get the magazines. And once I started working for that American Sports Network that we did the American Muscle Show on ESPN, I started there at age 21 in early 91, so I had access to a lot of pros, a lot of people that were very knowledgeable in the supplement industry, photographers, a wide range of people who were experts in their field. And I asked a lot of questions about anything that came to my head because I wanted to learn. And I would say that's the one thing I learned over the years, like I said earlier in this, was to keep an open mind and to never stop learning, because if you think you know it all, that's when you're done. You don't know what you don't know. So never stop learning. There's always there's always a lot more to learn. The more I learn, there still is to learn. And especially now, there's such a wealth of information out there available online. It's so much easier to access people and have access to people that are knowledgeable. But that would be the best advice I would give anyone, is learn as much as you can. If you just learn one way of training and one way of eating, and you think that's going to be all you ever need for the rest of your life, you might be right if your name is Ronnie Coleman. Get well, Ronnie. We're rooting for you. Someone who has sick genetics can probably find one way of training that works well for them and just do that for the rest of their life. One way of eating that gives them the results, packs on the muscle, keeps them lean, that just do that forever. Everybody else, we need to keep looking and experimenting, because there's probably always something else to learn. I'm always looking at videos, YouTube videos, Instagram, little things I can try in the gym. And I'm 48 years old. I've been training consistently since I was 14. So, yeah, it's been a long time, but I'm still always looking. I'll see somebody doing a little variation on an exercise. I say, I want to try that. I'm going to try that next time. Or just a different technique, doing something with the range of motion or a little hand placement or stance. I'll say, I want to try that, and I will try it. And a lot of times, I'll try it and go, I don't like it. I'm not feeling this. But, maybe 1 out of every 4 or 5 times I try something, it's like, wow, this is cool. I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to do this for fairly consistently, until I stop feeling the results from it. But that's it. The best advice that I ever got was really just an accumulative amount of advice and knowledge and tips and tricks that I picked up from so many great people over the years that I had access to, luckily, through, and as a writer, I've had another great opportunity to have access to so many coaches, nutritionists, pros, just a wide range of people who are really good at what they do, and they all have slightly different methods and ideologies. So talking to so many people and getting a little bit, I'm very lucky. It's kind of like Bruce Lee. He formulated Jeet Kune Do supposedly by taking the best elements from all the other martial arts and discarding what didn't work. So I think that's a great way to approach bodybuilding and your whole knowledge base, is to learn as much as you can, try all kinds of different strategies of training, methods, techniques, and with your nutrition, supplementation, and what works, keep doing that. If something doesn't work, you're not feeling the results or seeing the results, move on and keep trying new things. And eventually you're going to have quite an arsenal of things that work well for you, and you're only going to get better and better and improve. And that's what it's all about. So that's been another edition of Ask Ron. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.